welcome to the channel, welcome to the video, and today is the building part of this speed build of the P-40 Tomahawk. If you haven't seen last week's video, please go watch it. Card on the top right of the screen. Top right of the screen now. Do go check that one out before you watch this, because I speed built the whole of this. There are a few bits and bobs I'll probably go over at some point during the voiceover, because there's not really going to be much to talk about today, because it is the painting and putting the landing gear on the aircraft. Though I might leave the landing gear till after I've painted it, because actually no, the landing gear is the same colour. I'm going to have that there when we get on to painting, just so you know what part is what. So I'm going to be speed building, or speed painting I should say. So yeah, I hope you do enjoy.
So I started off where I left off last week, which was the landing gear, because I didn't do the landing gear last week because I was basically getting on a bit for time, and I knew it was going to be complicated. Anyway, so started off with painting, painting the parts as I went, because it's a landing gear. The landing gear's different colour painting to the normal plane, or so the instructions said. Anyway, it turns out the actual landing gear is the same colour as the underside of the plane, so I could have got away with it, but yet again the instructions aren't very accurate when it comes to the paint. So here comes the fun bit, trying to attach the landing gear doors. So the P-40 has some weird doors. Anyway, this right hand side one, so the one I'm fiddling at the moment, just would not go on. Probably took me best part of 10, 15, 20 odd minutes to put it on. It would not go on at all. It just didn't want to go in. Funny enough, the second time round it did go in, after a bit of swearing and stuff, and the left hand side one just literally slotted in, which is really peculiar because the right one wouldn't want to go in and the left one did, which kind of confused me. But then that is Airfix for you. At times it can just work or not work. It's sometimes a roll of the dice. And I think here I'm looking for a very, very tiny piece, which is the other part of the landing gear door, and for some reason could not find that for save my goddamn life. And I actually managed to get paint in my mouth as I was opening that, so hence that description, and hence why all the stuff's moved. I'm just trying to find paint. Can't remember what colour paint I'm trying to find. Oh, it would have been that green, that dark green camo colour for the wheel bay, because it actually turns out, according to doing a little bit of research on the computer, drawing the video, it's actually green, not the beigey colour. So you can see there's green in the bottom of the landing gear doors, landing gear bay, sorry. And that was when I was meant to be recording, but I didn't actually record. I forgot to press resume after I went to wash my mouth out, so I actually filmed about 10 minutes of nothing, thinking I was filming. Anyway, back onto the thing. So the painting of the landing gear wheels, they weren't too difficult to paint actually. The landing gear doors, why do I keep saying landing gear doors? Landing gear wheels. You also had the, I think I'm touching up the prop there. Yeah, just touching up the prop, because why not? I had the black paint open and I thought, well, I might as well. So yeah, so the landing gear wasn't too difficult to paint. Assembling it's a different story. And I think that I'm not 100% sure what I'm painting there. I think it might be the I'm not sure what they are. I'm not too sure. Something black. Oh, it might be the landing gear like suspension stuff. So the actual landing gear itself. There were bits where for some reason, obviously it's sped up, so the kit just did not like this stand at all, one bit. It was an absolute pain. It just wouldn't stay. I did knock some paint over on day 3, but we'll get onto that when I get onto the painting later on down the line. So here I am putting on some more parts of the landing gear. I think it's the actual landing gear doors, if I'm not mistaken. Landing gear suspension, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's the landing gear suspension. That could have been what I was painting. That actually went in really nice, really easy. It really did go in quite smooth, actually. I just was adjusting it, make sure it's 90 degrees. So, as the instructions say, it should be 90 degrees from the bottom of the landing gear doors, not the wings, because the wings are actually slightly bent. I found that one out on a previous kit I built. Anyway, the landing gear itself, the actual wheels, were an absolute pain because it's the actual wheel, and then you've got like the rim, like the inside of the wheel, and they just wouldn't go in. I think I do that now. Yeah, I think that's the wheels I'm cutting off the sprue at the moment. Yeah, so the wheels you'll see now wouldn't go in. I think I actually got that paintbrush and just basically bashed them in like you do when you're bashing a nail in, because they just would not sit. Sanded one of them because I thought it was the paint, but it wasn't the paint. It was a really snug fit. They just wouldn't want to go in. After some prodding with a paintbrush and getting a little bit frustrated, they finally went in. So that probably took a little while. Well, it did take a little while, and then they just did eventually just go click. So here's its normal time now, just so you can see the wheels. So you can see there's a black and a grey. The grey was the bit that wouldn't want to go in. Anyway, back on to the build. So here, I think, I'm not too sure what I'm doing. I might be, I'm not sure. What am I doing? Oh, I might be putting the exhaust in. I think I was putting the exhaust in. Don't quote me. I think I might have been putting the exhaust in. Again, I should really take note what I'm doing on a speed build, so I'm not going ums and ahs, drawing a voiceover of me watching the build sped up, because normal time it's alright. Sped up is a different story. Anyway, putting on the there's another landing gear door which I finally found out when I wasn't looking for it, which is kind of typical, because when you want something you can't find it. When you're not looking for it, you bloody find it, which is usually how stuff works, to be fair. So it wouldn't go on, and I got really frustrated. It stuck to my hand, stuck to the what they called, the tweezers, that's the word I'm looking for. Stuck to the tweezers, stuck to my hand, stuck to the cocktail stick, just wouldn't go in. So I did get pretty frustrated, was an understatement. They just wouldn't stick, and when it was stick, it was the wrong way round, and then I figured it out, so I had to flip it, and then it just wouldn't go in. And I kind of got really frustrated, and I ended up punching the wooden slab, as you'll see.
So I've just finished finished the building of the kit. So I'm now going to be painting all of that camo. By all of it, I do quite literally mean all of it. Starting with the bottom, and then I'm going to be working my way round the kit until basically I've got it all finished. So the painting shouldn't take too long. Do apologise if this video is running on a little bit, but it's actually slower than last week's video, so it will be a longer video. But yeah, so hope you enjoy the painting.
So we're on to the painting now. I start off taping up the parts because I thought I could tape them up. Turns out the tape wouldn't want to stick, and that went out the window quite really quickly, so I stuck them around the propeller instead. So I should have stuck them the other way around. Anyway, the first thing I done before I actually painted was put a wash on, which is basically more black paint dipped in a pot of water, which is that black circular thing I keep dipping my brush into, but it's more water than it is paint. It just brings up the panel lines, and obviously you've got to wash it off after you finish with it, otherwise it's obviously dries and you get a really crap finish. So I just done that for basically the whole aircraft. It probably took me about 10 minutes to do the whole aircraft, but it really did work. Really come out quite nice. Really nice. I do recommend doing that. The back ones I put a bit too much paint to water, so it come out quite thick, but it also come out quite nice actually. So yeah, So that was the wash. I do it for the top of the wings and the side of the fuselage later on. Anyway, we're on to the underside of the wing. Now, first I actually muck up the paint, so I basically wipe it off and start over. So I painted all in one direction, which was towards the back of the aircraft, apart from little areas here and there, and that was just watering it down because it was a bit too thick to apply. Do the same on the other wing, do the same on the underside of the aircraft, do the underside of the stabilizers. It's really satisfying watching it paint speed build painting, don't ask. Anyway, so continue on the painting, and yeah, it kept falling off the sand an awful lot when I was actually building it, which drove me nuts. Anyway, so the beige, the navy grey came out quite nice, and yeah, put a second coat on the aircraft going in the same direction, I think, just touching up areas I missed. There wasn't much really, but because the first coat was pretty runny and watery, I just touched it up. So touch it up, and then that was the underside of the aircraft. That was probably the easier bit of the aircraft because it was just one colour. Anyway, on to the light sandy colour for the top of the camouflage. It was quite a light beige. It's almost like a sand. But yeah, like I said, put the wash on, and that took a little while. So put them on the wings, as you can see, on the wings, wipe it off. Basically what I've done on the underside, the only addition is I put it on the side of the fuselage and on top of the fuselage as well, just because I can. So it really did actually make a difference to the aircraft. It kept falling off the goddamn stand, hence why. So that's me just putting it on the side of the aircraft, getting some tissue and wiping it off so I could make a start on the first part of the two colours of the camo. You can't really call it a camo until it's got two colours or more. That's when you can call it a camo. Technically the first coat. So it was a very light coat, and yeah, when I flip it over in a second, basically do the whole aircraft, the whole side of that aircraft. As you see, I'm doing the fuselage. The exhaust bit was fun. Anyway, obviously I had to go careful. I didn't mix the beige with the grey because it wouldn't have stuck very well. Anyway, doing the other side of the wing, and that was basically do the tail with the beige, and that's pretty much the first coat of the beigey colour for the camouflage. So that was that for that day. It started to go like bubbly, so I just stuck some water on it just to thin it down a tad. Anyway, there's some pictures coming your way now, just so you'll see what it was after day 2. So on to day 3, the final day. As you can see from them pictures, you can see what I meant about the wash. The first probably 5 minutes of this build was me spilling a shit ton of paint everywhere. So I spilled some over the bottom, and I'll spill some in a minute when it falls off the stand, and I pick it up and I knock it all everywhere. Say I wasn't very happy. Like, there we go. It was an understatement. Cause it basically, that was all I had for that colour, and I was putting a second coat of paint on to the aircraft. So you can see where I'm putting the second coat on, and it was quite nice, and it really did come out lovely, the second coat. I'm glad I did put a second coat on it before I went on to the camo. I didn't do the nose because the nose is red, not black, like the instructions say. It's all kind of instructions. I will get on to the bad instructions of the painting in the inbox review, no, the finish review, sorry, next week. It was really bad. The colours didn't match what the actual aircraft was, so there was quite a bit of googling on the laptop on my bed. Anyway, so I think I'm nearly finished with the beigey colour, just putting the last bit of the second coat on, tail, rudder, and that was pretty much that for the first bit. Now I put the box down so I can actually make a reference for the camo, because having it upwards is not easy when you're trying to do a camo. So the camo seemed a bit dark, so I stirred it and it still was dark. So it seems a bit darker than what the box says, as you'll see when I put it on in a second. So those dots are basically me just mapping out, like dot to dot basically, of a camo. Now, don't copy my camo because my camo is nothing like the box art. It's just freehand. Just put a few splodges of dark brown on it and call it a camo. Because at the end of the day, camo's a camo. It doesn't matter. Probably varied by aircraft anyway. I'm no artist, so yeah, I basically just put it on willy-nilly where I wanted, and it did come out looking quite nice actually. I did quite like the way the second layer of camo came out. So, doing the side of the fuselage up on the antenna. I do go on to the other side of the aircraft in a minute. I did learn the hard way when I was editing. Anyway, I should have when I'm doing the sides, put it towards the camera because you actually can't see what I'm doing unless it's on the wings. I apologise. So as you can see, I'm just basically putting random splodges of colour and calling it camouflage because at the end of the day, like I said about a matter of seconds ago, camo's camo, it doesn't really matter. I was happy with it, that's all that matters. So I do the top, there's a bit by the front of the cockpit and a tiny little bit over the top of the propeller. Some on the tail, some on the side of the aircraft, and yeah, I do then go on and make my head keeps popping down. I do apologise. Anyway, that is that. Just putting the last finishing touches, and that is the aircraft. I hope you'd enjoyed, and until next time, bye.